All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to our first librarian virtual office hours of 2025. My name is David Oimby. I'm a data analyst and library support specialist for Above the Tree Line, the makers of Edelweiss, which you can hopefully see on your screens right now. I'm going to do just a quick introduction, a little housekeeping, and we'll get started so we can have some time for questions at the end. And hopefully, if everything goes well, give everyone some time back this afternoon. So, like I said, my name is David. I joined Above the Tree Line just a little bit more than 3 years ago. I previously had more than 15 years experience in academic and public libraries before that, and I was an Edelweiss customer at 3 of the libraries I worked at. So I've always really enjoyed the product, and that makes these sessions very easy because I can both advocate for and really understand how librarians use it. And then I also want to introduce Gabriela Costa, our education and content manager. She is playing host in our chat today. Chat is going to be the primary way to interact today. If you have any questions or comments, please shoot them there. Gabriela will be monitoring that. If there's anything I need to focus in on while we're moving through the demo today, I'll be sure to try to accommodate that, and Gabriela may interrupt periodically to keep me on task. So thank you all, and let's get started. So really the goal for today is to show you the free tools that you get just by having an Edelweiss account that's associated with your library organization. Most of what I will be presenting today is freely available. There will be a couple of things that are showing here that you would not necessarily have unless you were an analytics subscriber. That's just because our test account has access to both. If there's any questions or concerns, I'll be very willing to help walk you through them. So everyone on Edelweiss gets their own homepage, which is where we are right now. I went ahead and pulled up the 3 widgets that are really great for librarians to use to start out, just to help with discovery and what they may want to find in Edelweiss. There'll also be areas that we're going to dig in a bit deeper today. So first you have your digital review copies, which is just a widget where you can look at what review copies are available to you, how they're available to you, and if you want to request them. It's a way that you can sort of initiate the process without having to go into the review copy tab, although it doesn't have quite all the tools that you get in any of the tab. That's more or less true for any of the widgets we'll be looking at here. You do have some options if you click on this gear icon to add a save filter, so you can narrow this based on your genre save filters. If you are looking at a specific collection area or specific age range, something like that, you can tailor this more to your needs here, and it will repopulate the widget. Over here, we have top not yet released titles. You have some different options here. You can still apply a saved filter. You can also look at markets. Now, I want to go into this a bit. So for top not yet released titles, you'll notice that this says US public libraries. I do always encourage people when they're looking at not yet released titles to consider one of the bookseller markets, particularly the US indie booksellers. That's just allowing you to look at what may be like a sneak hit or an unexpected title that's getting some buzz because it will get drawn to the top as we get ordering information from the indie market. So they may be looking at stuff a bit farther out. And you can see we also have options to detail this to look at specific regions if that may interest you for booksellers. So again, it's just a little bit better forecasting because the indie booksellers do send us order information in greater amounts than public libraries right now. So just keep that in mind. You can, of course, locate the time frame. If you want to look at 6 months back, 3 months back, we have several different options that you can access through the drop-down menu. And then finally, you can add a pub date or age range. You will also see this option for ISBN or family. I would discourage the use of family in this lane, particularly too. What family is a system that lets you look at any number of titles that are nested under family data that we get mostly from Ingram, Baker and Taylor, and some of the other publishers. So, but it will say that item doesn't exist if it's not a family already. So I would generally stick with ISBN when you're using our free tools, and in particular, top not yet released titles. Moving on to most popular titles. So these are ones that are popular in the specific market that you're looking at. This may be where you want to look at US public libraries, because this will show you what's popular at public libraries that we've received ordering and collection information for across our subscribers and aggregators. And then you also have a different time frame index. So you can get to title information for any of these by clicking on this link here, and it will take you to the direct title information page, where you can see bibliographic information, summary, contributor, market points, key selling points, everything that you can see from other than in the ILS data tab is in orders and peer data are something that we get from publishers. So this is something that we have received through their metadata feed. The metadata feed from them. So it's kept relatively accurate. It can be ahead of the game for like library journal or school library journal, something like that. We get information sometimes as far out as like 6 to 9 months from publishers. We also have a wholesaler info tab. This will show you current availability at Ingram's warehouse right now. We are looking to add some other wholesalers as well. But if you look at these, it will tell you in real time what's available at these warehouses because this is run through an API that we maintain directly with Ingram.
David, I'm just unmuting to ask you really quickly, the top not yet released titles and the most popular titles, are those only available for folks that have analytics? Or should everybody have access to them?
I thought everyone should have access to them, but perhaps I'm mistaken. I'm sorry about that. But yeah,
No, that's fine. I think that just analytics folks have those.
Yeah.
So I think we really recommend, if you don't have analytics, and a lot of people don't see them, so it's just for folks that have analytics, is focusing on adding digital review copy widgets. Everybody has access to that.
Shelves would be good for
Yeah, do you want to talk about shelves a little bit? Sorry for getting off track.
Sorry, I was kind of working my way across the page. I do apologize for the mix up with those widgets. That's what I get for, I'm more of a back end kind of guy, so sometimes I look at the site from a different way than it's displayed.
No, totally fine.
No, so you can customize this. You can see this icon here that you can move these around. There is a little bit of locking, so you don't have true flexibility with placement, but you can kind of make it your own. You can add these. So I would recommend, in addition to digital review copies, the other ones that would be useful that we're going to go in today is catalogs. So you have some options here. You have recently viewed on your work list or your collections. Your collections does mean in this context collections that you have in Edelweiss. It's not related to collections at your library. That's why it's available for free. And you can do the closest for the new titles would probably do catalogs with new titles. But so if you add these, I'm going to start with catalogs with new titles. I will take a look at Wiley today. You're pulled immediately into the catalogs for that you can find under publishers. So you can see what you can do with your homepage and your widgets apps, which are covered in greater detail that I'm going to get in today in our knowledge base. That will be one of the things I close out with today. You can add these, like I said, I already have the review copies, but more or less this is a way that you can bring a collection of resources from across the tabs directly at your finger points right when you log in and keep on touch of what you need to do. So just moving on, I'll go over to publishers. Publishers are a way that you can search and you can see you have this sticky list to where you can quickly, you'll keep your like top 4 or 5 publishers that you want to keep tabs on up at the top. You can see today I kind of pulled some that I thought might be of interest to Wiley or to libraries like Wiley, W.W. Norton, and Scholastic. If I click on Scholastic, I'm going to get taken to their main publisher page with us. This is going to have all their catalogs that you can take a look at. We'll click into those. The other thing I want to point out that will become a bit useful later on when we briefly touch on event grids is that if you go to information pages, this is where publishers store information about their reps. I do know not all our publishers have dedicated reps for libraries, but this would be where you could find contact information if there's some sort of special offer or like discussion guides for scholastics and you want to reach out to the publisher or get access. This is where you will probably be able to find it. Flipping back to all catalogs, you can see here you can click onto any of these. It is searchable. So if I did like summer independent summer reading promotion, click on here. I forgot one point of housekeeping. I do apologize. just in case someone noticed this looks different from there. I am using the new view today. Currently, we do have two views in Edelweiss. You'll see up here in the top right, you have new view. If you've been a user for a while, you may be using the old view. Which looks like this. So just that's something that is a way that you can just toggle back and forth. But like I said, since we're moving more users towards the new view, and that's kind of where our education materials are focused right now, I'm going to stick with the new view, but know that you can always move back and forth whenever you want to. All right. So getting in here, you see a list of titles. Again, like the catalog listing for the publishers, this is searchable. You can use title, ISBN. It also has this nice list of the titles in order as they appear on the screen, which is a functionality that we did not have in old list view, really. You have different actions. So you can select all or select on current page if you maybe want to build out a collection or an order. So in going to a collection, like if I want to add all these to a collection I want to look at and possibly have displayed on my homepage, I could do this. Everything is now pinged. And then I could go add to a collection. Create and add. And voila, you have this all saved to a collection that you can access later at just a few clicks of the button. Then you do have some other options, like if you want to send an email to a colleague, create a PDF of these, probably of less interest, although it could be used, I suppose, if you want to create a quick reading list and didn't have, or reading list, excuse me, and didn't have access to other things. You also, of course, have all the usual functions that you get with Edelweiss. You have the option to add tags. So if you were 25, there you go, and you can add as many tags as you want. There's no limit. You can use them for filters in some other ways I will get into later. You can also even write notes to yourself about a title if you want to use this to kind of store programming ideas and other things. And then you can, of course, look at the same content that we were looking at earlier, that pop-up title detail view. So you have your content summaries, contributor bios, links. Links can be a bit of a catch-all. You'll notice here that Scholastic has added their campaign deck. Some of the publishers will include like links to reviews or links to awards here, although you can also see any awards appear under honors at the top, just maybe a little bit more granularity follow down. You'll have quotes, and of course then you have comp titles and reference titles and possibly images. So we'll just go ahead and open everything up and take a quick look at it. You can see here are the catalogs where you could view this title in addition to this one. If you click over here, you'll also see this is where collections are that we just added to. You'll also see orders if you had added this to an order in the past. Comps are what a publisher has listed as a comparable title with us. So this might be where you could find the paperback edition or the movie tie-in edition or possibly something in the same series by the same author. Then if you go on to related titles, Fortunately, no related titles for this one, but related titles would be a bit farther afield that we could take a look at, like books maybe by the same imprint or things of that. It's a way to both inform collection development, but can also be good for reader's advisory if you want to think of things that may be recommended in like the trade publications or by the publisher. Then you can, of course, collapse all these down. Also add a review if you have read this book. If you do want to save your reviews, or as also where if you were a librarian that isn't a demo account, you could add a review to the Library Reads program. And finally, you can set some of your preferences here to where certain fields are always shown. You can see here you toggle some of these on and off. Showed skip titles would be if a publisher had something that they later suppressed from a list. Probably is more useful for retailers, but you can see here if certain aspects of the marketing content are useful to you, you can sticky that. You can even exclude and add other availabilities to that. And of course, you have the option to apply saved filters as you do pretty much anywhere in Edelweiss that we're going to look at today. So you can really sort of quickly drill down and make things as easy as possible. Moving on, since we're here I am going to take a look and cheat a bit because I saw something recently. I'll show you how to quickly build an order. Who doesn't love cooking, right? Well, maybe not everyone, but Gabriella can tell you I probably cook more than I should. It's what I generally do when I'm not working, if I'm not reading. So if we're looking at this, you have the option to, sorry, quietly comment. You have the option to build an order. Now, there are going to be a little bit here that is in analytics, but if your library is set up with multiple locations, which you can do in your account preferences that I'll get into later, if you have administrative access, you can start to add titles. You can see I already have a few here, where if you want to, you could just find these by like branch, not 55, just 5, thank you. And you can see we're adding these titles to the selected order, Cooking for Fall. Now, what I did to add this is if I went here, you could create a new order or add to a selected order. And this is a way that you can basically create collection development groups within your library. I know this has been something that we've really seen a lot of libraries start to do extensively in the past year, 2 years really, where they're using Edelweiss as a way to create orders that can then be used by your acquisitions or technical services department, because unlike some of the other library platforms in Edelweiss, we don't have a limit of the number of staff. We have a pretty wide collection of materials that maybe even take the wholesalers a while to have, so it could be a great way to build out wish lists that are quickly ready. But once you have orders created, you can go over to your orders tab. You can see I threw these in here. And you have everything still saved in this. You have the total amount of titles, total number of units, and how much it would cost. Now, this will be just the regular cover price. It will not reflect any sort of wholesale or consortium discount you may get with Ingram, Baker and Taylor, anything like that. But what you can do if you go to Actions and you do Select All. Is this right? No, I'm sorry. If you go to, well, yeah, if we go to Actions and select all, and we go to Export Preview, you have the option to add these to an export file, and we have three of the vendors currently support it. This is a XLS or CSV specific file that can be used to send something to Baker and Taylor Title Stores 360, Ingram iPage, or Brodart's bibs, so that it can quickly be sent in. You can get it added into your preferred library wholesaler, and then your collection development department, however that's handled, will probably thank you, because that way they will have lists ready to go, and all they have to worry about are the processing codes. They don't have to go shopping again to find the ISBNs. It can be like a 2 collaborative lists that you keep going for your staff. Okay, so we've covered publishers. I'll just briefly touch on catalogs. Catalogs are more or less just a way that you can search catalogs without going through a specific publisher. And then I know why I really want to touch on today that's always popular are review copies. So of course, this is what many people know Edelweiss for as a way to request or access review copies. Just a couple things I've done. You'll notice up here, I've set this to the last month just so it would load a bit faster for us today. There you go. You can change your time period here. You can also see that we have a couple different options, and I will show one of the saved filters here. We're going to go with a genre filter. This is just based on BISAC headings. Unfortunately, most genre headings that you're going to get with the free version of Edelweiss are going to be tied to BISAC. That is mostly because the number of publishers that send us Dewey headings is incredibly small. Most of the way that we get Dewey headings that are useful to librarians is if you do choose to subscribe with us at either the base camp or the summit level. But you can see that this has been narrowed down. So I have my save filter for sci-fi fantasy on. I'm looking at the last month. I can clear everything real quickly here. You have a couple of different options with how you get review copies in Edelweiss. So there are digital review copies, print review copies, and audio review copies. I do want to say the number of publishers that are offering print review copies with us is very small, and it's best just to do a dedicated search for those alone, if that's what interests you. For digital review copies, there are really a couple of different ways that you can access it. So you'll see over here to the right of the title that we're looking at, hand icon, and so this does indicate that there is a DRC available. The hand means you have to submit a request. How you submit a request is you just do this. You can see here we already have a profile strength set up that's good. So what you may have to do if this is your first time using Edelweiss is click here and set up your profile. So what you want to do here is tell publishers why you're requesting to view copies. I really recommend stressing, like, if you have any sort of programming responsibilities, if you have any sort of collection development responsibilities, and what those are. Like, say, I am a nonfiction subject librarian for biographies when you're submitting to like Oxford University Press or something like that. Just make sure that's encoded here, and this will be carried for you, so you will always have the same role. You don't have to retype this every time. When you go here and you have this, you can give a more specific request. If like you're saying, I want Primal Hunter Volume 3 because this is going to be our pick of the summer and we're looking for it, you do have the option here to also say a little bit of a generic one, but if you want to give more details, you could do it here, and you would hit submit. That would go off to the publisher. The publisher's agents are who approve or don't approve, which is a little bit unusual for librarians, but can happen. Requests for DRCs. It's unfortunately nothing that we can help you with in terms of after submitting the request. We can offer you guidance on what to include in your profiles, but there's a long delay. That may be something that you want to go over to that catalog information page and consider reaching out to any rep or contact that the publisher has designated. So if you see that hand icon, it always means that you are going to be submitting a request, which you can see here, there are a total of 38. If you see this logo, it's a much more pleasant green when it loads. This means that this is available for download immediately. If you see this cloud icon, so that can be sent immediately to whatever device you want. You can download it typically as Adobe Digital Editions. We do also support Kindle. We also have a new option, or relatively new, it's only a couple of years old at this point, called Edelweiss Reader. This is an in-browser reader, and I always recommend this if you are a children's librarian, because something that we have typically struggled with for a lot of DRCs for graphic novels and children's novels, particularly sort of like a photography book, is they're so image and graphics rich that can be a challenge for Adobe Digital Editions or Kindle. This lets you take a look at it, read the DRC to your heart's content in any way you want. You can see here I'm just clicking through the pages because what I want to show is that this will remember where you are. So if you get distracted, you have to take a desk shift, go out and help the patron. You can not worry about your tab getting X'd out, because if you just go right back to it, it will remember exactly where you were, and you can pick right back up in addition to bookmarking this page. But there's always the last page that you were looking at is what will display here. Just one moment, I'm sorry. All right, so you can access these through this icon. You also see we have the option over here for Edelweiss readers if you only want to look at those options. Okay, so just want to check in. There are no questions, concerns. Everyone's still on the same page, correct?
Put your questions in the chat if you have any, but so far, David, you're good to go.
That's fine. That was also just me cheating so I could get a drink of water.
Oh.
All right. So moving on, we have shelves, which is just basically where you have shelved items from titles. That is where you can do this add to shelf, and you'll be saved here. I did want to touch briefly on event grids because I do know there have been some librarians reaching us to us about this. So publishers send to us, with frequency that really varies depending on the publishers, grids for authors events. And it is possible for librarians to request an author event through us. However, event grids are policed by the reps, so that would be something that you would need to contact the publisher for. If they don't have a region or state-specific rep, you probably want to look for one that's assigned to like public relations, promotions, or communications. Anything like that is the person you will contact. See if you can get access to like Chronicle Books Spring Event Grid, which we'll take a quick look at. This does sort of work like submitting a review request. So you can see here, if you wanted to take a shot at getting a cooking session for the Vibrant Hong Kong table, you could click make a request, talk about the event, talk about your request, of course, like detail your space, detail a specific partnerships in the communities you may have, like for the example, if you have a culinary school that may be partnering something or anything like that, and save, it will go off to the reps and they will review and let you know what's in there. But again, you do have to have a rep let you in to see event grids first. So that is a little bit of legwork, and we're always open to recommendations, but that is something that if you have any feedbacks about how this could work better for libraries, we would really welcome anything you have to say about that. Moving on, I want to get into some of the nitty-gritty details of how you can get the most out of your overall organization profile, because I will say the greatest benefit, in addition to being a librarian for requesting review copies, is to make sure that you're assigned to your library's organization, because publishers pay attention if you are associated with the library's official account. I say official because what we have done in the past for libraries in the United States and Canada is we pull from ILS data along with some other surveys, and we automatically create an account that's tagged for the like the IMLS, the FSCS ID key. So that is what the official account is. And then if you have an official account and you have users on it and you are a user administrator, you do have the option of adding additional people. So you can see here we have 65 account users on our demo account. If I knew that I had a new librarian or maybe like a clerk, someone that is going to help and might want access to Edelweiss, I could send them an email invite. We'll just do quick invite. I won't go through with this because this email no longer exists anymore. I hope it doesn't. I've been gone from there a while. You could do name, title, and their market. Unless you are a Canadian library, I would always recommend sticking with US trade. US English, quick message if you want to say this is your account set up for Edelweiss. You can assign privileges. Ours for the demo account is relatively bare bone. User administrators are people who can control, they can send the invites, they can also remove people from your organization. So we generally recommend there not just be one, but we say it's probably not permissions everyone needs to have. And then most other permissions for library are going to relate to analytics. So you really wouldn't have many more of those. If you do have roles, these are something that if you want to organize services or like collections by department, you may want to tag these based on how your organization is laid out. And then if you do want to possibly remove someone because they have moved on to their next library job, what have you, you do have the option to remove this user. I will say something about this is don't worry that you're deleting the person's account, because that's not what you're doing. You're just saying that this person is no longer affiliated with our organization, and they'll get notified that they're just getting picked up and moved to their own individual organization, so they still retain their reviews, anything like that, but they lose access to whatever tools, shared collections, anything like that are affiliated with the overall library. Moving on from that, do have the you do have the option to look at reviews. So these are reviews from you or people under your organization or people you have invited as your colleagues. That is basically how you can like share information outside a catalog if you want to just sort of have like a broader discussion, or look at reviews if this would be a useful way. I know 2 libraries have done this. They've used this as a way that they can harvest reviews that they then share on blog posts. So they more or less have an ongoing flow of ideas of like titles that they can take a look at and use for patron recommendations or things like that. And with that, I have really hit on the core tools that you have for Edelweiss at the free level. So please feel free to ask me any questions. If there's anything you want me to go back and cover over in greater detail, I am yours in any way you would like.
So we have a question that came in. Do libraries have to make their own account and then list their employees? How do you recommend people manage their employees' accounts?
I will say that you may have to, if you're not aware of your library having an Edelweiss account, it probably means that someone who was responsible for it left and that information did not get passed along as it should. Because I have yet in like 2 years not found a library that just flat out didn't exist. I found libraries that maybe had a branch that we didn't have and we might have to add that. But if you don't know if your library has an account, please just reach out to us at support@abovethetreeline.com. I'm sure Gabriella will put that in the chat, and we can take a look at where your account may be and who is a user administrator for that, and coordinate with you and see like what we need to do to get people merged back in, because there is sometimes an interesting thing. What happens if like a smaller library lost their account or forgot about having it, you will, instead of having two Shelby County libraries, because there are actually two, you will sometimes have like 16, because 3 or 4 people from each individual department will will have created their own accounts, which can get messy if you do want to use this as a collection development tool, because then the like shared collections, tags, and everything are tied to those organizations. We do have the option, if that has happened, of helping you network everything together. It's not something that you can do individually, but we can like move things behind the scene to make that happen. So it is necessary for libraries to manage their own employees, adding their own people. We currently don't have an automatic way to do that. We are willing to assist you, but we much prefer like organizations keep track of that on their own, so we don't have as many issues.
Okay, I have some more questions for you. Someone asks how one would go about getting analytics. What's the status of librarian analytics? Is that something we're adding new folks to or no?
It is something we're adding new folks for. It is a different process than it was several years ago, because for a while we weren't. There is a form on the website, and that link is long enough, I can't hold it in my brain. I'm sorry, but if we can look it up and make sure it goes out to anyone that's interested. That's also something, if you just reach out to support@abovethetreeline.com, we can get it to you. What happens now with library analytics is, once you've submitted a request, I will probably be in touch with you. Sometimes it's my backup person, but frequently it's me, and we'll like set up a session. We can do a demo focusing on library analytics tool and see what would most meet your needs. We only offer 2 levels now. There's Basecamp, which is primarily focused on the state of the collection report that can be sent out at different frequencies. And there's Analytics, which is the full suite of bells and whistles with your weeding report, your more detailed collection analysis tools. But yeah, that is something that we're offering. The other thing I want to say that's changed is we are charging a data assessment fee or an onboarding fee. That's a one-time cost to the library that, if integration is successful, will be counted against your first year's subscription. But that was not something that we did previously, that we're trying to be upfront about. And that's just because of the amount of data we were sometimes having to work with.
Awesome. Okay. Could you demo how you add titles to an order?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've breezed through that too quickly, I guess. So if we go back to a catalog and we went to culinary, with new view, it's a little bit more straightforward, because you are just I'll just create a new order to really show this off. So we're going to pretend like this is completely new. We will do 2025. You can have comments if this would be useful. You can go ahead, if you do know what purchase order structure you use, you can put that in here. You will not be using vendor code as a library, and you generally won't need to worry about appointment date, because that is done with a rep. So that's primarily aimed more for retailers. You generally will want to save without binding. Binding means that this order can only be used for this catalog. You can change that setting later. I'll show you how to do that real fast too. So I'm going to save without binding. So this is an order that's open across like multiple publishers. If I want to pull cookbooks from 3 or 4 different publishers, and you can see here, I am just adding a number into this box. So you can see that we have the locations for the library. And up here, you'll notice that this starts to track when I click out of this box. So we have 2 titles, 3 units. And there you go. So that means that this order is good to go. If I click back over here to orders, I now have this new order where I showed you all how to download it. And you can see the same amount of information there, number of units, number of titles, what the, again, cover price will be. So don't worry if you do have discounts. Now, I will say, and this is something I forgot to do earlier, so thank you to point this out. Don't be like the demo account or some other people. You want this workspace to be clean, even if you're not using it to order directly. So we have a bunch of active orders that we probably don't need. If you know that this order has been completed, it was sent to your technical service people, that you no longer are interested with it, just hit complete. That's going to clear it out of your active orders, but it'll still be accessible to you if you want to go back and look for reference. So did that help you out with adding titles to an order?
I think that covered it. But I'll put some resources in the chat just to follow that up. The next question is it possible to add a library affiliation to someone who already has an Edelweiss account?
Yes, that's something that we have to do for you. We would have to transfer them, but yes, we can take care of that for you if they are out on their own organization. And it's a relatively quick process. It typically takes a couple minutes if there's nothing crazy going on.
David, can you search up your library in Edelweiss before contacting support? So I think this question is about joining but not being sure whether or not your library already has an account. How do you find that out? Like if you're joining, will it be obvious that your library already has an account that you can join into, or what do you recommend? Should they
Um,
just reach out to support?
Reaching out to support would probably be best, because I will be honest, I'm going to try to do this real fast. It's been a while since I looked at it this way, and this is a good question. I didn't think about this. I'm sorry. What happens when you want to be a new member? I remember in an older template there was. I think what you would have to do is say that I'm part of an existing account, and then after this you would get a search option, or you would have to identify the account. But the issue that we have there is, like I said, if we have accounts that kind of scrolled out of the year, if you just search on the name of your library, there may be three. So we may have to help you identify, because if I remember correctly, it's just an actual list of the libraries with that name. So,
So if the user doesn't know that their library already has an account, um, and so they don't know their user administrator to ask them to add them, they should just reach out to support. Is that what you recommend?
that would be the quickest way, because
Okay,
we can see. I know we can definitely see more information on our end than anything that's available in the like joining, the
cool.
like sign up screen.
So, some more questions. Someone works for a university and selects materials but does not generate the POs. Is there an easy way to export ISBNs from Edelweiss?
Yeah, so there's the order way that we have already looked at. I briefly touched on collections. So like, let's say that you were picking for several different subject areas and you had created several collections. I'll just use these shared by my colleagues for this one. You could go into these and use the same export. You could select whatever titles you want. Let's quickly do actions. Select on current page. You could send it by email, or you could, if you export to a file, you have the option to export by several different options, and you can create your own custom export. So if you just wanted this to be list of ISBNs with titles, you could create that as a custom export that's then ready to go in whatever format you choose.
We have another question. Any advice for French language collection development? Is there a language filter somewhere?
Yes, so there are a couple of different ways to go about that. We do have, if you're at an academic library, you may be even more interested in our Canadian or French markets. So you can see here, I can change my market, but I can also change my language. I do want to stress that site language is just changing the language on the site. It's not doing anything else more. But if you were interested in like popular titles in France or anything like that, you could change your market. Additionally, you could create a saved filter. Or you can look at if there are specific vendors you know you want to order from, or if you want to do if there, because there are some like French specific formats, that's another way that you could go about doing it. But yeah, so there are some options. And of course, you do have the BISAC foreign language codes that you could also take a look at too. And then you could use that save filter, or I said like you could assign save filter to quickly move through things.
I have I think we have something in the Q&A. Sorry for the Q&A. How do I know you're all good. How do I know what grids are available to request from publishers?
That is something that you have to reach out to the publishers themselves. Again, event grids is pretty much something that they have strict control over. So it's not something that we have a searchable database for, unfortunately. But like I said, if there are publishers you're interested in, or you always see titles in a publisher's catalog, that's something that I would go to the publisher, see if they're listed with us. That's a great way. If you can't find the publisher on Edelweiss, they're probably not going to have event grids with us. So that's a very low level of shopping. But then, like, yeah, you could just come over here, go again to information pages, and like see who they have contact information more of, like if there's a publicity or marketing, advertising, anything like that. Norton's great because they have one specifically for library sales, so that would be who you would reach out to.
I have a question, David, because I'm not sure, or I'd love to go over this again. How do librarians submit reviews to library reads?
So that we're also going to cheat it because I missed this, or I missed this earlier, but it looks like for some reason our demo account does not have access to that. I don't really know why. So we'll cheat. I know my account has access. I can type and have people watch me at the same time. I promise. Oh, so if I had reviewed something from Steve Calgary Press, when I go to my review, I have all the options that will be saved on your review page. And if you are a account, this you don't have to be associated with a library organizational account, but if you are associated as a public librarian in your Edelweiss account, you should have the option to submit your review to Library Reads. If you do not, reach out to us immediately. It's something we can fix. Sometimes that, like, if you have an account that was like for a book sale or just like a reviewer, it may not have gotten assigned correctly, but we can take care of that, and then you can start submitting to Library Reads.
I think, are there any other questions? You could put them in the chat. We may have covered everything.
It's good.
I think we've covered everything, David.
And we got the questions in QA as well.
Yeah, we
Okay.
captured them.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I really want to thank you all for joining me today. We are trying a new setup for this webinar. There is a recording, but we'll need to work out how we're going to share that out to the registered participants. So be patient with us as we work through that. I really appreciate your time today. If you do have any questions, if you are interested in library analytics, please feel free to reach out, and I'll be looking forward to having that conversation with you or answering any questions you may have. Thanks again. I hope everyone has a great day and enjoys having these about 14 minutes back.